So that's the wisdom. So we're going to deal with all these and see, kind of deal with each one, what he talks about. So first of all, he says wisdom is first pure. Wisdom is first pure. So what do we think about when we think about pure? When we hear that word pure, what does that make us think? It says wisdom is first pure. Not necessarily what he's talking about, but what does that mean when we hear pure? What does that mean to us? Okay. He's coming around. Okay, following, okay. Okay, not contaminated when we think of pure. Hey, give him time, he's running around, so. So it's not contaminated, okay. What else do we think of when we hear pure, the word pure? Anything? Okay, not selfish. Okay. So by definition, from we pull it from the Greek, because people translate these from the Greek, right? So we'll look a little bit at that. We're not going to hurry too much, but just to kind of give us a little bit of clarity of when it's talking about here. But it means uncorrupt, authentic, sincere, pure motives. So when we think about pure, that's what he's saying. Something uncorrupt, right? Undefiled. Another way to think about it, in 1 John 3:3. The word is used for Christ's character. He's pure, right? I think another way, we can look at it another way is, those of us who have been in the Army, the word integrity. We should have integrity in our wisdom, right? It should be pure, integrity. It should be genuine, real genuine. If I'm wise, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cheat you. I'm not going to try and manipulate you with my wisdom, right? If I'm wise, I'm going to be a person of integrity. I'm going to be honest and respect you. An interesting fact about the guy who invented the lie detector, I think his name was Dr. Leonard Keeler. He invented the lie detector. He tested over 25,000 people, and he came to the conclusion that people are basically dishonest. Yeah. So we've got to have that integrity, right? Proverbs 10:9 says, "A man of integrity walks securely." So the two wisdom books in the Bible, James in the New Testament, Proverbs in the Old Testament, they both talk about wisdom. He's not afraid to be found out, right? The person who has wisdom. He doesn't say one thing and mean something else, right? Because eventually you're going to slip up, right? If you don't mean it when you say it, you're going to have to cover it up the next one and the next one. And eventually you're going to say, well, you said this. What do you mean with this? But you said this, right? So if I'm a wise person, James is saying, if I'm wise, this wisdom from above has to be pure. It has to have integrity and pure motives. So if I have wisdom, I have to come with it with pure motives. If I have wisdom, if I'm going to try and show you something or teach you, it has to come purity, right? With good motives that are not impure. And then he says, wisdom from above is also then peaceful. It's peaceful. So when you think about that, what do you think? He's talking about wisdom. We're trying to learn what wisdom is. It says wisdom is also peaceful. What is that? What do you think about when you hear that? Peaceful. Okay, a calmness to it. Anybody else? What do you think about when you're peaceful? Excuse me. Okay, so peaceful, or if we look at the definition, I'm not going to try and say it, but the word is from the Greek and mess it up. But it means peace-loving, that it brings peace with it, that it yields peace, right? So if we have wisdom that comes from above, then we're bringing peace with us. We're able to bring peace. So if you're not bringing peace, then maybe that wisdom isn't from above, right? The things that you're trying to teach or show somebody. James is saying, I'm not going to make you angry with the wisdom that I bring, right? Wise people work to maintain harmony. They're not always looking for a fight, right? If it's peaceable, you're not looking for a fight. You're not using your wisdom to win a fight. Wisdom is peace-loving. You ever met somebody who's always arguing, looking for a fight, right? That's not wisdom that comes from above, right? Some people, they say, there's a saying, that some people are so argumentative, they would only eat food that disagrees with them. That's how some people are, right? They want to argue and fight so much they'll only eat food that disagrees with them. That kind of person. They like to antagonize, right? Proverbs 23 says, any fool can start arguments. The wise thing is to stay out of them. So what causes arguments? If you're wise, you know because you try to avoid them, right? If you're a wise person. So let's look at three things that cause arguments. What causes arguments? Comparing. If we want to learn how to avoid arguments, one of the things that starts argument is comparing. You're just like, right? Something starts like that. Or why can't you be more like, right? Comparing. When I was your age, right? That's a good, I'm getting everybody in there. My ex used to, right? So
That's
don't do that,
never
right?
say.
If you want to be wise, don't compare, right? That's going to start an argument. What else causes arguments? Well, condemning. I'm going to give you three, and then if you want to give me another one, you can. But it's the 3 C's is what I call it. Comparing, condemning. It's all your fault, right? You started something like that. It's all your fault. You always do this or that. Or you never do this or that, right? Condemning. Or you shouldn't do this or that. You can bury a marriage with a lot of little digs, right? You always do this. You never do that, right? So condemning, that's another way to start an argument. And then the final C is contradicting. James says if you're wise, you don't sweat the small stuff. You don't interrupt somebody in the middle of a sentence, right? They're trying to tell you something. They're like, wait, but this, but that, right? Or contradicting. The secret to wisdom is knowing what to overlook. Some things are just not worth the fight, right? Some things are just not worth fighting for, not fighting about, right? Wisdom brings peace with it, is what James is saying. If I'm smart in my relationships, Proverbs 14:29 says, a wise man controls his temper. He knows that anger causes mistakes. How many of you ever done something dumb in anger? Right? You're angry and you do something dumb, right? Because you're just angry, right? Right? We talked about, I think last week, or we talked about anger as emotion, right? Well, don't let it make you do something dumb, right? Anger causes mistakes, right? If I'm wise, the way it says here, if I'm peaceable, I'm not going to antagonize you and contradict you and compare you to somebody else. I'm going to bring peace if I'm wise, the way he's telling us to be, right? The next thing, let's look at the next thing. It says, but wisdom from above, the next one is gentle. Wisdom from above is gentle. So what do you think that means? What do you hear when you hear the word gentle? Not aggressive. Okay. What's that? Not ruffling feathers. Okay. That's good. It's gentle. What do you think of gentle? Anybody? Soft? Soft? Okay, soft. Gentle? Okay. Right? Like when you touch a newborn baby, right? You're gentle, right? Some people don't want to even carry them, right? They're going to break them, right? They go, I'm going to break them. But they're gentle, right? Gentle. Okay. By definition here, as far as this is concerned, this word, from the Greek, it says it's forbearing, fair, reasonable, making allowance for others, lenient towards others, equitable. So another way to say this could be is wisdom is considerate. It's mindful of others' feelings, right? If it's gentle, by this definition. A common mistake is that we don't think of others' feelings. We invalidate other people, how they feel, right? Your feelings don't matter. No, they're considerate of other people. James is saying that wise people are considerate and they don't minimize somebody else's feelings, right? They don't minimize that you're upset about something. They don't minimize the fact that you don't agree. They don't minimize. They're considerate and they try to understand the other person, right? They're gentle. Proverbs 15:4 says, kind words bring life, but cruel words crush your spirit. Often we belittle sometimes, right? We put other people down. Or we're condescending toward others. I know how you feel. We don't just consider their feelings. No. Oh, I know how you feel. Well, this happened to me, and we kind of just give our story, right? Sometimes we need to be more considerate of other people, right? Consider their feelings and don't just incorporate yours, right? Be considerate. Have you ever played this game with your spouse? The husband comes in, he's all worn out. He says, man, traffic was bad. My boss was upset at me. It's just a bad day. And then the wife says, oh, yeah? The AC went out. Little Junior dunked the cat in the toilet and the dinner's burned. Right? They both had a bad day, right? Right? They both had a bad day. One up in each other, right? But if you're wise, if your wisdom comes from above, you're going to be considerate and gentle. Allow your spouse who's tired, let her give her story, or let him give his story. Don't try to outdo them. I'm more tired than you. Go ahead.
And I believe also a part of being gentle towards people, not just your spouse, but just towards even your, within our church.
Right.
It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not what you say; it's how you say it. And when you talk to someone, you have to have that gentle spirit.
Right.
If you say stuff and it just comes out harsh, then guess what you've caused? You've caused an argument. You've caused that person to be angry, So a lot of times we just have to be gentle when we speak to others.
Right.
Even if it's a problem that needs to be addressed or whatever, you
right.
come in a gentle spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gentle spirit. Anybody else? Somebody else? Okay, go ahead.
I know also there was times when I was deployed. It's like things would never happen when I was home. Wait
right.
until I was deployed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just talking on the phone, hearing the stress
mm-hmm.
and everything, or how bad a day was.
Right.
Trying to resolve or fix it from thousands of miles away.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
right.
May not have been able to do a whole lot, but at least try to comfort and
be understanding.
Settle them down a little bit.
Anybody else? Okay. Over here. Right. Right. Good. And what was that at? Where was that at? What verse? Titus? Titus 3:2. Okay, that's a good verse. So James is saying, if I'm wise, right? If I have wisdom, I'll be gentle. Meaning I'm not going to minimize your feelings, right? I'm going to be considerate towards you. I'm going to be considerate. Okay, now the next one, wisdom that comes from above. Now, I got a version, mine says is obedient. Obedient. But what does another version say there? Because that's kind of help us with this definition. Because obedient kind of says a different thing to us, right? It kind of makes us think, well, what is somebody after gentle? What is some of the other versions say? Submissive, okay. Full of mercy, okay. Responsible, okay. Any other different definition there
Willing to yield.
or word? What is that?
Willing to yield.
Willing to yield. Being sincere, okay. Reasonable, another one says reasonable for that word there. So this word here that's used, it's translated many different ways, right? You know, because we think of obedient, we think of something else, right? We don't think of, you know, sometimes obedience doesn't always hit it, but some of these other words kind of help us understand what he's trying to say there, right? By definition, easily entreated, right? Easily entreated, easily persuaded, right? So now we kind of get a little, it's not just being obedient, right? You're easily persuaded. The interesting thing about this word, because it's translated obedient in some places, right? But it's the only place in the New Testament that this word is used, right? So it's not obedience to what we think about, because that's a different word, even though we translate it as obedience or obey, right? It's the only place that it's used. It's not a word that we typically think of as obedience, but this word more properly is, like I said, well persuaded, inclined, willing, and disposed to comply. Easy to come to terms with is another way to define it. Yielding. A wise person can learn from anybody. That's what it's saying, right? Not difficult. Not defensive, right? Open to reason is another way you could say this. A wise person, if he has wisdom from above. He's not stubborn. He's open to listening to others, right? That's what this word is trying to convey, that you're open to other people. You're open to what other people have to say. I think it's the Revised Version that says it's open to reason. That kind of gives you a good connotation of what this means. A wise person is open to reason, willing to listen. Another way to say it, right? The wise person. You're a reasonable person. You're willing to listen. Even to your kids, right? Sometimes we're not willing to listen to our kids. Sometimes we don't have to, but most of the time, sometimes we need to just be open to listening. We can't have the attitude that says, hey, don't confuse me with the facts. I've already made up my mind, right? Or if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you, right? We can't do that. A wise person doesn't antagonize anger, doesn't minimize feelings, it doesn't criticize suggestions. It's not defensive. If someone has a suggestion, you're going to take it and consider it, right? Consider what they have to say. Because a wise person can learn from anybody. A wise person can learn from anybody. So I was thinking about telling this story. Maybe I'll tell it. So it's kind of like the new minister who was preaching on his first day. And when it's over, this guy walks out and says, "Preacher, that sermon." The new minister, trying to be open and reasonable and wise. He says, why didn't you like it? Well, in the first place, you read it. In the second place, you read it poorly. In the third place, it wasn't worth reading in the first place. And then another guy comes along, right? not knowing what the other guy said, comes up behind and, hey, don't worry about old Jim. He just says whatever, he just repeats what everybody else says. So if you're wise, you're going to be open to suggestions, right? You're not going to criticize, you're not going to be defensive. Proverbs 12:15 says, a fool thinks he needs no advice. A wise man listens to others. If it's true, listen and learn from it. If it's false, just forget it, ignore it, right? But you don't have to put it in their face. If I'm wise, I'll be open to reason. James saying, if I'm wise, I'm not going to criticize your suggestions, but I'll listen to you. I'm going to be open and listen. Be willing to learn from maybe something you have to say. Maybe I don't have all the answers. So if I'm wise, I'm going to listen to you. Okay, wisdom also. The next thing. These next two kind of come together. Mine says full of mercy and good fruits. So if you're wise, if your wisdom comes from above, in verse 17, it says you're going to be full of mercy and good fruits. What do you think that means? Full of mercy and good fruits. Okay. 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 What else do we think about? Full of mercy. Good fruits. Anything? Not hurtful? Okay. The word mercy here, the word is like we most often think about. Mercy is to have compassion, right? Like when God has mercy towards sinners, right? But when it comes to wisdom in this particular context, we're actually putting them together, right? Full of mercy and good fruit. And the word fruit here is actually it's just the word for actual fruit, right? So we're full of mercy and good fruit. We ask ourselves, we say, do I jump on people every time they make a mistake? Every time they have a fault, I jump on them. Say, look what you did. You messed up. Do we always, that somebody in the family, we know they messed up years ago and we always make a joke about it? Yeah, remember when you did so-and-so, you really messed up. Right? Is that being full of mercy? Yeah. Is that good deeds, good actions? Right? We don't want to bring up bad things for people. That's not being wise. Right? Yeah, maybe it was funny at the time, but we don't need to bring it up every time. That person knows they messed up. It's hurtful, right? It isn't wise. You're supposed to be full of mercy. You don't go hounding people for mistakes, right? Somebody knows they made a mistake, so you don't continually, poke them with that mistake. You don't hold it leverage over them, right? Remember that time you did so-and-so? Remember when you did that? You don't keep bringing them up from the past. If you're a wise person and you're full of mercy, you're not going to bring up all that past stuff. You're not going to bring it up. That's not being wise. That's not being wise. If I'm full of mercy, I'm not going to just emphasize your mistakes. Right. Right. What does mercy do? It doesn't give you what you need. It doesn't give you what you deserve. Yeah, mercy. Another little story, I guess. Two guys at a convention with their wives. They were long lost friends. They sat in the lobby all night talking. They knew they were going to be in trouble with their wives. They were out late. They went back to their rooms, and the next day, they happened to see each other, and they said, "What did your wife say when you got back?" "Oh, I walked in the door, and my wife got historical." "Oh, don't you mean hysterical?" "No, I mean historical. She told me everything I've ever done wrong. She got historical with me." Right? We don't do that, right? If we want to be wise people. Proverbs 17:9. It says, "Love forgets mistakes. Nagging about them parts even the best of friends." If you're wise, you're not going to rub it in. You're going to let it go. You're not going to hold it over their heads. When somebody stumbles, you don't judge them, but you encourage them. Right? You're full of mercy. Good fruits. They don't need to be judged. They need encouragement. When somebody stumbles, they don't need you to judge them. They need you to come by and encourage them. "Hey, I mess up. We all mess up. It's okay." It's like when your spouse forgets to fill the car with gas and you run out of gas on the freeway, right? You don't rub it in. You say, "Hey, you made a mistake. I understand." Sometimes it's hard, right? Little things come around. "I can't believe you didn't put gas in the car. I was on the highway." But if you're wise, you're going to take a step back, right? Be full of mercy and say, "You know what? He didn't really mean to forget. I'm sure he feels bad now that he knows I'm here, stuck out here." Or she, could be she. We all get frustrated sometimes. We all get angry. But the wise thing to do is not emphasize the mistakes of others. Be full of mercy. And the good fruit, of course, here is the actions, how you react to it. If you're full of mercy, how do you react to other people? Do you show sympathy or do you rub it in, right? No, you show sympathy towards other people. You feel for them. Being a doer of the word, as James calls it, right? James 2:12 says, "Mercy triumphs over judgment." Mercy is a greater principle than judging others, right? We show them mercy. We give them mercy. What James is saying here with this, he's saying, if I'm wise, I'm not going to compromise my integrity. I won't emphasize your mistakes. I'm not going to criticize your suggestions. I won't minimize your feelings. I'm not going to antagonize you to anger. And I'm not going to emphasize your mistakes. And my actions are going to prove that I'm not, by not bringing them up over and over and over again. Right? That's what James is trying to tell us. And then finally, he says, wisdom from above is non-judgmental without hypocrisy. Non-judgmental without hypocrisy. Anybody, what does that mean to you? Non-judgmental without hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah, you're non-judgmental, and there's no hypocrisy, right? We all kind of know what the hypocrite means, right? And we all kind of remember, I think we maybe heard that back in the day, that's what they called the people in the Greek theater, hypocrites, right? Because they would walk around, they would hold one mask. That would be like a guy, he would do 5 different parts. He would be over here, he'd be one person, and he'd be acting like this, and he'd put on another mask, acting like somebody else, right? That's what they did, and that's where we get our word, right? You don't go and act one way with this person and then go say something about them, right? You're not going to be a hypocrite. You're not going to pretend to care about somebody and then over here you don't really care. Put on a different mask, right? James is saying if you're smart and wise, you're not going to be a phony, right? We understand what that is, phony. You're not going to wear different masks depending on who you're talking to, right? You're going to act the same way with everybody. You're going to be genuine with people. Real wisdom, real wise people are honest and open. They're honest and open. They're genuine. They're authentic. They don't pretend that they're perfect, though, right? They don't pretend they're perfect. They don't disguise their weaknesses, pretend like they're always good, they're always happy, right? Always put on the happy face, right? A wise person is going to say, hey, I have weaknesses too. Not try to be something that you're not, right? The wise person isn't trying to be some other person while they're here at church and then they go out there and they're different. That's not being wise. A wise person is non-judgmental and without hypocrisy, right? Proverbs 28:13 says, you will never succeed in life if you try to hide your sins. Don't pretend to be perfect, because nobody is, right? Don't come over here and be judgmental. Man, I can't believe you did that. That's terrible. It's okay. You'll do better. Don't be condescending, right? You can tell people about your weaknesses. Everybody knows your weaknesses sometimes, right? We can see each other's weaknesses. Sometimes we don't want to admit them, right? If I'm wise, I don't disguise my weaknesses. I don't pretend to be something that I'm not. I'm honest with people. I'm open with people. I'm considerate of others, right? If I'm a wise person. If I'm wise, I don't antagonize you to anger. If I'm wise, I don't minimize your feelings. This is what James is telling us. If I'm wise, I don't say you're right or wrong. I just consider your thoughts. I don't criticize your suggestions. I don't emphasize your mistakes. I don't rub it in. I let it go. If I'm wise, I don't disguise my own feelings. James 1:5 says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask God, gives freely. So, I'm going to wrap it up there. Hopefully this is good for you. This is a little lesson I put together about wisdom and what James is trying to show us, and hopefully we can take some of that with us. All right, thank you.